the summaries for tags and tag groups, those already exist, but there were some improvements that were just made today. So there's a PR out going into staging. And so what we were doing before to create these summaries was we were having a query that looks something like this, write a 1-sentence summary listing the key topics on the context above. And we were trying to retrieve the content from our vector database for this tag or for the documents under this tag. The problem with that is that this one sentence likely is not going to match to anything relevant or any of the key concepts in a specific document, especially if it's a very large document. So made some changes to, instead of retrieving content from the vector database, we're actually going to use the document level summaries that we already have to generate this. So if there's 2 documents under my Wikipedia tag, we just take the individual summaries of each of those documents and those become the content. So we're just doing a summary of summaries in a sense to create the summary for a tag. And that also should speed up slightly the process for generating this because we no longer have to reach out to Zillis. We're just getting it from MySQL instead. So part of that is the creation of a new content granularity, if you're familiar with that on the back end. And this change also introduces a new concept that we've kind of been talking about for a while, which is that of I called it an LLM use case. Essentially what this is, and I'm not saying we have to do this, so Eng team, let me know if you have any thoughts about this at all, but essentially a use case here is just a code for how we're using the LLM or the workflow that we're going through. So a use case could be like private knowledge chat or public knowledge chat, or here's SmartChat summary, which is what we just chatted about, right? And in this configuration, we can define everything about the full chain to create a chat from an LLM, right? So this could be a different type of content granularity, like you see here. It could be a different prompt, could be a different LLM that's used. All of that just gets defined here. And then that way in the backend code, we no longer have to try and like infer which chat we're in and then do conditional switches to different kinds of prompts or content granularity. All of that is just defined right here. And that will clean up our code and also means fewer parameters we have to pass from the front end to the back end. Now it would just be the use case that we have to pass and the back end handles everything else. So this could kind of be part of a slow, not a refactor, but we could start using this for a lot more than just content granularity. It could be used for a lot of different stuff.
This is super cool, Connor. Thank you. Here's what's interesting about what you just showed. When we were in the RP session, we were talking about how we could display that summary. Can you go back to that page for a second? And the way that you're displaying it is the way that I had mocked it up, which is cool. And when we had talked with Ryan and Jing, we had thought, well, Ryan wasn't sure if there was an endpoint to be able to display it up there, but we thought, oh, I wonder if we should just display it in the chat window, to display the summary in the chat window, along with a couple questions that we recommend somebody ask. And so now we've got it built the way that I had originally mocked it up, and we've got a possibility that it could show up there, or it could show in the chat, or we could do something else entirely. We could show the summary where you're showing it, and what could pop up in the chat is, here are a couple questions you might ask. So it's just the questions part. I'd love to know from Erica or from CX or any of us, how do we want this? Like, this is about helping people have magical moments like Taha had, where it's like, oh, I didn't know what I didn't know about this, but now I'm really curious and now I want to know more. What can we do to be giving the user a starting point? Who's got opinions about how we show this?
I agree that having as much as we can move into chat, the better. Like, for instance, reporting bugs. Like, how can everything be a chat experience? And it's interesting data wise, the magic of post hog and seeing how people are using it. Someone tried to upload a file by typing upload file in chat. So it's just like people are gravitating towards that of, oh, I must be able to use chat for everything, whether it's technically, possible or not.
Then Connor, we would take what you're doing here and showing it the summary at the top, and we would just put that in as a chat message. So instead of showing here, it might show here, along with a couple of questions that we recommend that people ask. So maybe you work with Ryan to play around with that type of approach based on what Erica's saying. I don't know what you think about that, Connor.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. It's just a matter of, yeah, exactly where we're displaying it. What would
Also,
be,
another, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's done. Go ahead.
Also, like, let's imagine that it's in the chat, and I might want to get a more in-depth summary or learn more. Like, maybe there's the ability to press a button and it opens up another panel, and it's effectively all the key concepts and all the story tiles. I mean, we can also be thinking about ways to let people effectively explore more deeply as a part of chatting, but also as a part of just like clicking in to read more about what this is all about. So maybe you and Ryan think a little bit about how do we make it really easy for Taha, who didn't even realize that he could smart chat about how to do these redirects with React. Like, just imagine that you're Taha and you're like, oh, I just want to like understand everything about this. How would you want to do that? Part of it's chatting, but part of it maybe is clicking in to see a more in-depth summary or something like that.
Yep. And I think another part of this is what Taha was just mentioning too, with trying to cache these and store these somewhere, right? Like regenerating these every single time is pretty expensive. But even just working on this one task, I also thought about, well, what if people are constantly changing the content that's in a tag? Like how often and under what workflow do you actually regenerate it and update it, right? Like, oh, I accidentally added this document. Do we automatically change it? But then what happens if I remove it? It's like, there's all these edge cases around how to handle that, which is another extension of this.